Hello and welcome to a special solo episode of Kasuki Talks podcast. Today, it's your girl Soroya, and today we are doing a Q&A episode. Now, for those that follow me on Instagram, you will know that about 2 days ago, I put up little question boxes for you guys to answer, to send in questions for you guys to ask me, and for suggestions for topics you would like me to discuss in the future. Now, I didn't get that many questions because I didn't get that much responses, but for the responses that I did get in the span of 24 hours, those questions I will be answering today. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce today's sponsor for today's episode, Anchor FM by Spotify. The first question I received is, Bible character, who you think you are, who you really are, who your friends think you are. Ooh, I love this question. I will say for who I think I am, as far as Bible character goes, I would say Esther, because I relate to the fact that she was an orphan. I myself was an orphan and was adopted. Her willingness to stand up for things and people that she loves, I relate to that a lot, being that I am an advocate for mental health illness awareness in the Christian community. And her story is just super inspiring, and I look up to her in those ways. Now, the second part of that question was who I really am. Excuse me, who I really am. You know what? This may seem like a cliche answer for those people that know me, being that I'm a worshiper. As far as singing, that's the type of worship I do. Well, anything is worship, but that's like the main way that I worship. I'm gonna say David. And I'm gonna put that as the answer for the third part of the question too, of who your friends think you are, because I think my friends would say that I'm like David as well. Or they may put me as like another female character in the Bible, but I feel like 8 times out of 10 they'll probably say David. And I'm gonna explain why for who I think that's who I really am, because David had this way of being able to express his emotions, whether it be lament, anger, pain, joy, praise, worship, in writing songs, or what we call psalm. And I'm the same way that I write songs. I have a journal where I write songs, or I'll either like voice record them on my phone. And a lot of the stuff I write comes from lived experiences and comes from moments where I was in a heightened state of some type of emotion. And that's literally what the book of Psalm is David expressing his feelings, his thoughts, based on a series of events that he went through in his life that is told in his story in the Bible. All right, question number 2 is the one worship song you can't live without. Ooh. Now, I did kind of cheat and saw this question beforehand, and I was like looking through my worship playlist, and I'm like, ooh, what is that song? What is that song that is like, it just stirs me up every single time, like with no doubt. And the song that I'm going to choose for the answer is called Hunger by David and David and Nicole Binion with Madison. I think that's how you say it. It's spelled MDSN, but I think you're supposed to say Madison. And if you haven't heard that song, it is just beautiful. That one with what are their names again? David and Nicole Binion is the live version, and it's just oof. It takes me there every time, and just the lyrics of it too is just so profound to me. Like, there's a hunger and a thirst, I am desperate, immerse me, 'cause I'm not waiting, not anymore. I need you, Lord, I need you, Lord. That's the most thing you're gonna get out of me on this podcast. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Question number 3. Your go-to music when you're feeling overwhelmed or need to cry. Now, I love this question because I actually have multiple playlists on my Spotify. And one of the playlists that I have, if I can look for it, is called For Little Me. And these are songs where the meanings of them hit really close to home for me, and they speak to my inner child. If you haven't listened to the episode about healing your inner child, you should go listen to it because it's pretty good, if I do say so myself. And I have quite a few songs on here, and it's a very special playlist to me whenever I need to schedule a cry, because I do schedule cries every now and then. The songs on that playlist definitely do help me, and that playlist is public, so I will definitely leave the link for that down below if you want to listen to it for yourself. But let me actually choose a song. Actually, the most recent song that played from this playlist, it played from my other playlist that is also on the For Little Me playlist, is called Arcade by Duncan Lawrence featuring Fletcher. Beautiful song. The arrangement, the production, the lyrics, the vocal talent, everything about that song is just it's amazing. Question number 4. Do you still struggle with your identity in God when living with the diagnosis you have? I really like this question. Now, I know I've shared it before, but I probably have new listeners who this is their first episode listening to the podcast. I don't mind sharing my diagnosis again. My diagnosis is borderline personality disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and major depressive disorder. I can say yes, I still do struggle every now and then with my identity in God, being that I live with these specific mental illnesses that are part of my diagnosis. It is difficult because little BPD is a personality disorder, so it affects how I interact with people, it affects how I think, it affects how I feel. And with BPD, I feel emotions super strongly, and they can come at me at the drop of a hat and leave at the drop of a hat within a matter of seconds. The best way that I can describe it, that is like, it's like a revolving door. So say that the first thing that comes to the revolving door is anger, and then it goes back around, and then as soon as it leaves, sadness comes in. Then as soon as sadness goes out, loneliness. Then as soon as loneliness goes out, impatient. As soon as impatient goes out, happy comes. As soon as happy leaves, and it's just another one. And my brain doesn't know how to let me sit with those emotions for a long period of time. So I can become very easily overwhelmed with my own mind. And to connect it to the topic of finding my identity in God, God wants us to have a sound mind. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. He wants us to have peace in our mind. That's what I was called for. That's part of my identity. And so, being that I struggle with the specific disorder that I struggle with, that it literally counteracts that specific part of my identity in God, it can be a struggle. But luckily, I am on medication that helps somewhat, because medication is not a one-size-fits-all. Medication is like trial and error, but God has given me patience with that. And God has given me patience with just everything that I do with emotional wise so far. And I'm grateful for it, because God doesn't have to be patient with me. Like, he really doesn't have to be patient with me, but he is. And other than that, of me having a sound mind, being called and created to have a sound mind, having peace within myself, he wants me to love myself because he loves me. And he has called me to do great things beforehand. He has called me to be a masterpiece. He created me as a masterpiece. And with having diagnoses like depression and anxiety, it could definitely make you feel otherwise. I know there's a lot of people that can relate to that. And it's a constant reminder every day. Every day I have to constantly remind myself. It's a literal fight with myself every day of reminding myself. And it's going to be that way for a while. I don't know how long. I don't know how long God has planned for me to live with the diagnosis that I have. And that is something that is out of my control, because his plans, his ways are greater than my ways. His thoughts are greater than my thoughts. So at this point, I just have my shoulders dropped, and I'm just following. I'm just following where God is leading me, where God is taking me, what God is doing through me with this podcast, with my mental health awareness page. Because when I look back at all the things I went through, it's like, okay, this is for a purpose. And the stuff that I may have went through may have been painful, but there's purpose in the pain. And even me saying that now is like, I would not have been able to say that for myself like about a year ago, or even like a few months ago. Because the episodes of depression and the mania with the BPD, it could really get to a person. But I choose to have faith in God still, because God chooses to keep me alive every day for as long as I've been alive on this earth. So that tells me that as long as I'm breathing, I'm meant to be here for a specific reason. Question number 5 is, how early did you know there was something different about you? How early did I know that there was something different about me? All right, so it's it's about to get a bit dark. So the earliest age is like 5 years old for me, or probably even 4 years old. I wouldn't be surprised. But at that early age, I had a lot of thoughts about death. I had a lot of thoughts about me being dead, me being in a casket, me being buried alive. There was times where I literally would ask myself that it's like, what is it like to be dead? Like, what is it like? Like, what does it feel like? Like, I wonder what that feels like. Like, I want to feel that. And a 4, 5, 6-year-old, on most occasions, should not be thinking that. And there's a part of me that wants to laugh because it's like, to me it's funny, but I know that's the trauma response, so I'm gonna try to hold my laughter back. But yeah, most 4, 5, 6-year-olds wouldn't be thinking that type of stuff, but I was, because 4, 5, 6, I experienced trauma even at that age. And from that point, up into even before I was in middle school, I just knew there was something different about me because I always had those thoughts. And I realized at a very early age that I was a very emotional child. I felt emotions differently than other people. So yeah, that is how I was able to know that there was something different about me. Question number 6, and this is the last question, and it is, why is being an advocate for mental health / illness so important to you? So, I'm not sure if I shared a background story of how this all even started for me or why I even wanted to start this. I may have, but I'm not sure. But for this question, I'm willing to say it again, even if I said it before. In the year 2015, 2016, God had placed in my heart the verse Ephesians 2:10. In that verse, it says of how we are God's masterpiece. In other versions, it says workmanship. For we are God's masterpiece to do good works beforehand that He has called us to do. And God had just put that verse in my heart. And He wanted me to do stuff like making YouTube videos. He wanted me to have a podcast. He wanted me to talk about my struggles, especially when I was starting my whole mental health / illness journey, with me getting diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and then getting diagnosed with BPD. Because I got diagnosed with depression, anxiety in 2016, and I didn't get diagnosed with BPD until last year. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Was it last year? I don't remember, but it was recent that I got diagnosed with BPD. And leaving my former church was also a reason that I wanted to do something like this, to be an advocate for people like me who felt like they couldn't speak up, who felt like their voice wasn't important, or that people wouldn't care enough to listen. Because I had dealt with people in my former church when I tried to seek help from certain people who were leaders and pastors, teachers in the church. They gave me answers that made me feel like it was my fault, that I had some type of demon inside of me, that I was filled with the spirit of iniquity. They would tell me, you're a Christian, you shouldn't be dealing with stuff like that. Answers like that. And of course, it made me feel horrible. It made me feel less than. And then it wasn't until I found my new church home, to the church that I go to currently, that, oh no, there was nothing, it was not me. They were wrong. They should not have told me stuff like that. And some of them knew what they were saying, and some of them didn't know what they were saying. In the way of how much it would affect me. Like, some of them knew what they were saying, and then some of them didn't know what they were saying, if that makes sense. But I was able to get past my church hurt. Thank God for that. Yeah, I just strongly feel that a lot more work needs to be done in the Christian space when it comes to being aware of people with mental health and mental illness issues. I believe that we need to have serious talks about things like the suicide rate, about things as far as how church hurt can lead to mental health problems, how being part of ministry can lead to mental health problems, how there's still a stigma surrounding certain things, like the talk of suicide, like the talk of being on medication, like the talk of having a psychiatrist or therapist means that, that you don't have faith in God, you don't have faith in Jesus, which is not true. And that makes people feel ashamed to even express that they are even dealing with stuff like that, whether they have a diagnosis or not. It makes people not want to seek help. And that is the problem. God gave the gifts of being doctors, therapists, people who work in medicine to them for a reason. Did God intend to have a world filled with mental illness? No. But that's what comes with the fallen, darkened world, because humanity failed when Eve and Adam ate the apple. It wasn't an apple. When humanity failed, when Adam and Eve ate the fruit, whatever the fruit was. By the way, it wasn't an apple. The only reason people think it's an apple is because the Hebrew word for apple is similar to the Hebrew word for evil. So people get that confused and think, it was an apple. Well, no, it wasn't an apple. Plus, if God wanted us to know what fruit it was, he would have put it in the Bible, but he didn't. So till this day, no one really knows what fruit it was that Adam and Eve ate from the tree. But back to what I was saying. But yes, that is why I am just so strongly an advocate for this, and I'll be an advocate for this until the day I die. And I know God put this passion in my heart for a reason, because I know that he wants to use me so that people can see me, see my life story, see what I deal with on the daily with my diagnosis, and be like, wow, she is able to still be standing on solid ground. My solid ground is God. My solid ground is the word of God. My solid ground is the fact that he has carried me to this point. That wow, like, she's still here after everything she's dealing with, her diagnosis, all this stuff. So it's like, I can too. That is the faith and hope that I want to put into everybody who comes across my podcast, who comes across my mental health illness awareness page, even my personal Instagram, because I talk about that stuff on there too, even though I don't post a lot, but I have expressed some stuff on there as well. But yes, that is why I am so hard of an advocate for mental health / illness awareness in the Christian community, and also for people who aren't Christian as well. That is it for today's episode of this Q&A episode. Remember, if you want to ask me questions for me to answer on the podcast, look out for when I put in the story the little bubble that says, Q&A questions, or you can always DM me or even email me. My email is in the Kintsugi Talks Pod Instagram page under contact, I believe, and if not, I will make sure to edit it so that it is. But the email, if you want to contact me, is kintsugitalkspod@gmail.com. If you want to ask me questions, if you would like to be on the podcast, if you want me on your podcast, or if you you want to partner up for me to sponsor something of yours on my show, inquiries and stuff like that, feel free to email me again at Kintsugi Talks Pod. That is KINTSUGITALKSPOD @gmail.com. That is the same thing for Instagram as well. That's the Instagram handle, but the links for that will be down below. My personal Instagram links will be down below, where you can listen to this podcast, like Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Reason will all be down below as well. And until then, God bless.